Greetings, everyone, and welcome to, I think it's a little bit of a special edition of Marketing the Invisible. I have Tamsen Webster, and Tamsen we just had the Olympics. She gets the gold medal for actually looking like the photos on her website. We, my photo's like 20 years old, and as I explained to Tamsen, it's not because I'm, vain about how I look. It's obviously I'm not. That's just to be too lazy. But so the reason this is important is that Tamsen is so on message, and this is what she teaches. Tamsen, by the way, forgive me, but welcome.
You. I'm delighted to be here, Tom.
Where are you hanging out?
I am hanging out in Boston, Massachusetts on the East Coast of the United States.
Boston. So does this have a twin city?
Does it have a twin city? Gosh, it probably does.
Is that like a brother or a sister city, or we just all
It probably
set?
does, and I'm embarrassed not to know. I don't think it's Boston, England, but that would make sense. Yeah.
Were you born and buttered in Boston, or did you?
I'm not. I was a Navy kid. I was born and buttered all over the place, mostly in Southern Virginia. But I have lived long enough in Boston to have a Bostonian alter ego named Karen O'Sullivan.
Wow, I don't know who that is, but
No, I don't either. But she's intense.
is this a good thing?
Well, she loves the Red Sox. She misses the dog track at Wonderland. She smokes butts, throws darts, loves a good beer, loves the Red Sox.
That's the main thing. Folks, the reason I'm genuinely really interested in this little interview is it's about a subject which we all need to get better at. The title is How to Build Buy-in. I'm going to ask Tamsen before I do the bio, I'm doing everything else about face today, but before I do the bio, tell us what you mean by building buy-in.
Yeah, absolutely. So buy-in, in my thoughts, capitalism aside, is really about getting someone to believe enough in something, typically something new, to actually act on it and to keep acting on it, which I'm particularly interested in that latter part of it.
Did you actually say capitalism aside?
Yes.
That just opens up this Pandora box of potential competition.
Yes.
Which
Yes. I mean, it's a very capitalist thing to say, like, we buy into something, but really what I'm deeply fascinated in is how do we accelerate the understanding and adoption of new ideas, right? Because
right. And this is what we talked about before we clicked the record button, is that we've all done this thing where we go, okay, I need to put something out to the marketplace, which gets cut through and which motivates people to want to know more, and it really draws people in, and you write this blog or you write this article or you do this webinar and you think, my God, I'm a genius. And you sprinkle it around the internet like confetti at a wedding, and it's crickets. That's all you're hearing. So this is folks, this is the foundation of all successful marketing, of all successful lead generation. And I'm fortunate to be talking to someone who actually walks the talk, because Tamsen's, if you just go to a website, I'll give you a URL in a moment, but you go to a website, it's like, boom. There's so much cut through. There's so much there that stands out. It's so easy to read, and the message flows. So that's why I'm excited about this. So now we get to the bio. Part message designer, part English to English translator. If only you could do woman to men translator, that would be.
That's one version of English to English. So sometimes I can help.
Yeah. It's like miracles we can do, but the impossible takes a little longer.
Well, that's true. Yeah. One can always hope.
So part message designer, part English to English translator, part idea strategist. And that theme of strategy is let's go to the helicopter view first, comes through as well on your website. So Tamsen helps leaders build buy-in for large-scale change. And this, folks, this is a whole science in itself. If you look at the medical world and you think, oh, are you a doctor? Yes, I'm a doctor. Okay. I have a problem in my brain. Sorry, I'm a heart specialist. You don't want me operating your brain. And marketing is like that. There are so many specialties. And this one is one that virtually no one talks about. And yet, ironically, it's so freaking vital. So let's rock and roll.
All right. You're already my favorite person, Tom, because yes, I'm deeply passionate about that very point. And you're right. I don't think there's nearly enough information out there about it.
Well, the reason I get hot and sweaty about it is that it's that whole thing, we don't know what we don't know.
Yeah.
And we're still the Mark Twain thing, which is, it's not the things we don't know that actually hurt us. It's the things we think we know that just ain't so. So
Yep.
we think we know about messaging. We think we know about um, the importance of getting the strategic message right before we drill down to the specific message. But very often those things that we think we know come back to bite us in the bum. More on that soon.
Yep.
We're going to kick off. Question number 1, 7 minutes starts now. Who's your ideal client?
My ideal client is typically someone with a new or novel solution to a complicated problem. So typically, I'm working with organizations, experts that are really trying to challenge the status quo. Typically, you're coming in with something new, which means education is built into what they have to do, but typically also can't get out of their own way because that expertise that led them to see that new option is just getting in the way of their being able to articulate what the idea actually is.
You're in the middle of, folks, if you're listening to this later, we're in the middle of a presidential election right now in the US. I'm not in the US, I'm in Australia, by the way, but I heard a Republican strategist. Trump gets up, and this Republican strategist is pulling his hair out because Trump's all over the place with the message right now. He's, I won't go into the messages because that would take an hour in itself. But this guy said one bad message repeated often is better than 10 good messages.
Hmm.
And this must be part of the challenge you have with clients is they've got this amazing product, but it's complex. And
Yep.
I'm skipping ahead, but is one of the mistakes they try to communicate too much? Is that what you have to do? Do you have to strip it down?
Absolutely. That's one of
Right.
the most common mistakes is that because you see all of the detail and all of the nuance of this beautifully complex, wonderful situation, all from the perspective of an expert, by the way,
Yeah.
it's kind of like expecting people who don't know how to play the piano to sit down and play one of the most complicated, like Tchaikovsky piano sonatas or something along those lines. Who even knows if he wrote one? But that's the whole thing. Before you can ask people to even process that kind of information, they have to understand just what are the basic concepts. And yeah, that's one of the
So simplify it, big picture chunks maybe. Because I say, so I want to stop the timer here because this is getting too interesting to straitjacket it. So here's what I've seen my clients do a lot. They tell me they're doing. So particularly new clients is the website's kind of often not on message. It's often too much about themselves as well. But
Yep.
what they say to me is, Tom, if I get in front of a good quality prospect, I convert them 9 out of 10 times.
Yeah.
And very often what they're referring to is they have a cup of coffee with someone or they have a Zoom meeting these days with someone and they just kind of chew the fat. So it's like a 45-minute meeting. And slowly but surely, the prospect teases out of them the stuff they need to know.
Exactly. Yes.
Yes, a 45-minute block of real estate to do the job. Very different if you have to put that on a billboard.
Correct. Right. And that's the challenge, right? Like most of the times, most of the times, if we've got an hour, we can fill it. And by that point, as you point out, by that point, we usually manage, usually accidentally, to get all the information out that somebody else needs.
But folks, so if you're a business coach or trainer, or you're wanting to scale with something special, bigger production, you can't get to that 40-minute meeting until you have what Tamsen offers, which is the soundbite that gets cut through and motivates people. They give buy-in, and what I mean by that, and this is, I should shut up talking and stop soon, but what I mean by that is that they are prepared to put some skin in the game, and that's when your 40-minute meeting comes in. That's when the inquiry comes in. That's when they're prepared to take the risk of offending you by saying, actually, it's not what I want. But so what we're talking about here is the pointiest end of marketing. So let me start the clock again. No pressure.
Yeah.
How do people know that they need what you've got?
Because whatever they are doing right now isn't working. Typically people, it's not getting the traction they're looking for, or they're saying they can't get to that 40-minute meeting, or people get to it and they say, okay, but I don't understand, is typically when they need me. Often it is very much at that point of needing to raise capital in one way or another. In other words, they literally have to make the case so that someone will put in that financial skin in the game.
The message might be slightly different, but really it's the same objective. Is you've got to articulate the marketplace benefit of what you're doing.
Yes.
So that the investors go, this thing's going to fly, or the end user client going to want to buy in. And one of the reasons that the person that I described before ends up with a 40-minute meeting converts so many is that the marketing is so crap that anyone who meets with them has to be seriously motivated.
Already, like, they've found something in there that they're willing to engage with.
Yeah, exactly right. Yeah, they can smell there's something in there. So we've covered your ideal client, the problem you've solved, the symptoms. So they're doing marketing, maybe doing advertising, maybe looking for investors, but they're just not getting that. They're not getting the eyes open. I'm not getting people leaning into it. They're not people going, oh, let's go to the next meeting. We've touched on one of the common mistakes already, which is
Yes.
trying to communicate too much.
Everything all at once.
So
Yeah.
many things,
Where
so many benefit. Let's just list them all, and what happens is people plays over, and it is blah blah blah, and they go, yeah, I'll get back to that, and then gone. What other mistakes are people making that before they get to you?
Yeah. So really three big categories. One is they only articulate the problem, saying we solve this problem, but they don't say how. The second big thing is they offer a solution, but nobody understands what that is. So we have this thing.
Okay.
Great. And so it's not making that connection between the two.
So let's can I just push the pause and go back to the first one?
Sure. Yeah.
So you're saying, so we have the solution, but they don't explain how. Is that just a sequence thing? Is that like
No, it isn't. No, it isn't just it isn't just a sequence thing because, going back to what you're talking about are listing out the features and benefits. I like to call that benefit bombing. I mean, if you think about it, fundamentally, what I think that a true core message, in fact, a true position that you're asking to have in the marketplace is a position that you take. You're taking a position that this action, this core approach with our idea, with our company, is the answer to this question that the market actively and knowingly has right now. So not some secret question.
Right.
And so when you have both of those things, then people are able to make that connection.
Yeah.
But when you just give benefits, right, it's just in a lot of ways, those are just additional outcomes that you provide. And features are just additional aspects of your approach. Neither one explains why it is that your approach delivers on that outcome. And this is a real missing piece of most messaging that's out there.
So the way I'm going to have to push pause button again.
Okay.
So
I'm flattered by the way that we.
so it's purely selfish reasons. I'm interested in this as well. But I do think it's important to unpack a couple of things.
Yep.
So the how. When I asked about sequencing, what I'm thinking is that if I start with the how, I haven't got them hooked on the benefits yet.
Right. So at a very high level, so this might get to the kind of free action people can take. The sequence that I recommend is actually at the if you've only got one sentence worth of time, say what your core approach is and what question it answers. In other words, to say, the best way to build buy-in is to build a story based on what people have already bought into. That's the position I take.
And that.
So if you go ahead.
Go ahead. No, you go ahead.
Yeah. And then, but if you have like say 30 seconds, then actually what I would say is the sequence starts with, because I believe, or we believe that every decision has a story, and the stories we agree with and act on are based on beliefs that we already have. That's why I believe the best way to build buy-in is to build a story based on what people have already bought into. So it is a sequencing thing. But what I've done there is explain not only the why behind what I do, right? Build a story, why, so that I can build buy-in. But I've also explained the why behind how I do it, right? So I've explained I do that, build a story based on what people are bought into, because I believe the why there is because every decision has a story, because people are already bought into things. They don't argue with those things.
But you still got both fundamentally in there, which is the why or the benefit and the mechanism, which.
Yes. But what I think that does, and the reason why I think it's so important, I'm so passionate about it, is that ultimately it's that underneath, it's those principles that determine really whether or not you align with how a business, whether or not an approach is going to work for you.
Right.
Quick quick example of that. A lot of times, people are like, well, the ends justify the means. And the thing is, there's probably been a time when you're like, not those ends or not those means.
Mm,
And that's fundamentally what we're trying to articulate quickly, concisely, and right up front.
yeah,
Because I'm a big fan of getting to yes faster, but also getting to no faster. Because think about it. If somebody doesn't want to build buy-in, they're not my client. If they
100%.
don't believe that every decision has a story, and if they don't believe that, we don't have to argue with things they're already bought into,
Yeah.
also not my client.
Uh,
And if I deeply believe those things,
yeah, and
then it's really clear who is or isn't for me and I for them.
the whole, I mean, you said something earlier on is, you're answering a question that the market is asking, or you're providing a solution, something like this, that the market is already seeking. And that is,
Yep.
folks, that's kind of the fundamental of all successful marketing is we're not going out to the market and trying to convince people they need what we've got. We're looking for the people who are already aware
Yeah.
that they need a solution. So there's
right.
so much to unpack on this interview. And I'd like to invite you out for a beer on Friday night so we can talk more about this. Any problem? I'm not where you
You're in
are.
Australia. Yeah.
And I don't drink alcohol. Apart from that, it's a full plan.
So double problem, but there we
Yeah.
go.
So, folks, I really encourage you to, first of all, reach out to Tamsen. We're going to give you a URL in a moment. Secondly, to replay this and to listen very carefully and take notes and to summarize those notes and kind of use that as a spotlight on your marketing right now and just check, do you have these points checked off? More resource coming your way. Now, Tamsen, where can people go to start?
Well, the best place to start right now is tamsenwebster.com/start here. So the word start and here as an HERE. And there is a worksheet and a guide, video and written, on how to come up with those elements that I just articulated.
So, folks, if you are broke, do that. And if you aren't broke, do that, and then inquire about working with Tamsen. And I say that, and I know it sounds a little humorous, but I've been broke and I've had to get free stuff and trying to figure it out. And fortunately, I haven't had to do that for a few years. But if you've got money and you're smart enough, you'll reach out and connect with Tamsen and see. And if she can't help you, probably someone else can. But okay, so we've got that sort of Tamsen, TAM for Mary, SEN for Nigel, Webster.com/start here. Are you related?
No,
Webster's Dictionary?
no, but I
Words.
do like to say that therefore I get to make the words, but I married into the word making family.
Right.
Yes,
Yeah.
I'm
Well,
not born that way.
maybe Webster's back there somewhere in the genealogy.
Maybe, yes.
Yeah. So let's finish with the last question, which is what's the question I should have asked you but didn't?
Yeah, I would say, why is this so important to me? And the reason it's so important to me is because I think our society, our planet needs these big ideas. There are amazing ideas out there. And the fact that the point of failure so often is the first articulation of them, when that's a solvable problem, is endlessly frustrating to me. So, to your point about no matter where you are financially or whatever, if you've got a big idea, that's really what I want to help solve. That's why I founded the Message Design Institute. It's for there to be a place for people to do this kind of message design on their own, but not alone, so that they can have access to these resources and be able to invest in them at the level that makes the most sense for them.
Fantastic. Tamsen Webster, thank you so much for the time. And if I'm in your city, I will invite you out for a beer. Hospital partner.
A tea, perhaps. My pleasure.
Yeah.
Thanks for checking out our Marketing the Invisible podcast. If you like what we're doing here, please head over to iTunes to subscribe, rate us, and leave us a review. It's very much appreciated. And if you want to generate 5 fresh leads in just 5 hours, then check out www.5hourchallenge.com.